Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. Is doing the most important things alone a good idea? How comfy are you with your choices when it comes to life's biggest decisions? What is real peace of mind with financial confidence, and how can you get it? Chris Fleming and Mark Peachy are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. On the show, they bring together the best and brightest minds to share with you how to have a more confident financial picture. They empower listeners with simple, common sense and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts from LPF Advisors.
Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors. I am your host here every week, as always, Chris Fleming. And today I have the honor of welcoming Vicky Townsend to the program. She's the president and founder of Divorce Right, a professional development and employee assistance program provider. Vicky is also the co-founder of the National Association of Divorce Professionals, working with clients before, during, and after divorce. Vicky, thanks for being here. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, let's jump in. So I know you have an interesting history. So could you just kind of take me through that briefly and how you came to have such a passion around the topic that we're going to cover today?
Well, my background is really and truly advertising and marketing. That's the world that I grew up in. I went through a somewhat messy divorce that, during the 90s, married again, and found myself in a really nasty divorce in the mid 2010. And even though I had been through it before, and I'm a pretty smart girl, I'm not a brain surgeon, as they say, but I'm a pretty smart girl. And I still screwed it up that second time. And I screwed it up mid 5 figures. And that hurts. That hurts, I have to tell you. I mean, it could have been, cars for my kids. It could have been fabulous vacations and a new, kitchen for me. I mean, it was a lot of money. And at the end of the day, I had to look back and go, nobody was there to advise me of all of the moving pieces and when I should do things and when I should sell things and all of that stuff. It made it so, I was on my own. I was on my own in a world I don't know. I was in advertising and marketing, for God's sakes. And suddenly I found myself having to be a professional divorce person that can get me through this labyrinthine system. I mean, let's just talk about that for a minute. That's designed by the very people you have to hire and spend a lot of money to get you out of. And they don't make it easy for you to be able to do it on your own. And, with the seeing of those pieces not fitting together for me, it came, and I'm a marketing person. I just saw this big hole with all of those professionals that work with that couple. So from the family law attorney to the financial advisor, to the real estate agent, to the mortgage person, to the mental health counselor, and everybody else in between, because there's so many more in this crazy labyrinthine system. They weren't talking to each other. They had no connection, right? There was no hub for them to discuss, even know that they were even working with the same client. So we wanted to, create an association where at least the professionals were in touch with each other, understood that, the value proposition that they brought to the table, but also that the importance of and the gravity of the decisions they were helping these families make, and that they were, acting as fiduciaries and doing what was right for their client instead of what was right for their purse or their pocketbook, which is oftentimes the case. So, and in doing the NADP, I saw that, I kept seeing all of these studies that talked about how much divorce actually, as much as it costs me to get a divorce, it was far, if I've always been a solo entrepreneur, but if I had been working for someone else at the time, I would have cost them more money than I spent on my own divorce, just in my lost productivity, time off from work for absences, presenteeism, which is when you're just sitting there and all of that other stuff. So I realized that I could make an impact in companies and government agencies by training their staff about this, all of the things that their employees go through, from religious differences. So I've got coaches that are Christians, Muslims, Jewish. I've got a Jewish rabbi that's a coach. I've got coaches that speak Chinese, Japanese, Farsi, Spanish, English. They understand the cultural LGBTQ. So my goal and my mission in this is to make this an easier one for families, and in doing so, it is a financial boon for the companies they work for.
Okay, that makes sense. So, following kind of along those lines, with the start of that company, and you've had the NADP in place for quite a while, is there something maybe that you wish you knew when you started out that you know now?
When I started the company?
Yes, when you started the company. Yes.
Divorce rate, that I am more than an employee benefit, that divorce rate is more than employee benefit. We're actually more valuable to the company than we are to the employee. But it's a topic that has been so ignored for so long in the corporate space that they feel really uncomfortable with the idea of even tackling it.
Right. Yeah. And that I was thinking about that in preparation for our discussion today. Maybe you can elaborate on, what do you think are some big misconceptions that businesses have about working with your company in their EAP program, right? That you help them overcome?
Right. Well, the first thing that people say to me is, God, I wish I had had you when I was going through mine. I wish you had been there. If I had had you, I would have had a different outcome. And they're right. And honestly, they're right. If I had known about divorce coaches, one of the things I didn't mention to you was I was being held in contempt of court because I couldn't get through my own financial affidavit in the state of Florida. We call them financial affidavits. I couldn't get through it. Every time I put a pen to paper, it was a reminder that my marriage was not what I thought it was, that it had failed, that I had done it again. And I just couldn't get through it. And all of a sudden there was a knock on my door, and it was a guy serving me with papers, say, "Are you Vicky Townsend?" "Yes, I am." "Here you go. You've been served." And so I had 48 hours to finish it. And I know that if I had had a divorce coach on my side, that whole time I could have gotten it done. I could have gotten it done better, because what I had was 48 hours to fill in a bunch of numbers. And I honestly pulled it out of my, and hoped for, and said a prayer and said, okay, this is the best I could do. So divorce coaches do an amazing job at keeping us focused and on track, out of overwhelm. And that would have been great. So we have to educate companies about what a divorce coach is and what they do, how valuable they are to their employees, and to get them to literally look at that because it is. I mean, they're HR companies and consultant companies that have been coming to us going, "Where have you been? We've been doing the studies. We do the studies. We know that divorce is the number one disruptor above death. And the reason for that is because death has an ending." Right? When somebody loses a family member, there's closure. With divorce, rarely is there closure. And some statistics around that are that the average employee loses 40% of their productivity for 4 to 5 years. That's a lot of lost productivity. And it's not this kind of money, right? It's not them writing a check, but it is for their, their time off from work. It is for their tardiness, or their need to leave early, or their distractibility, or the errors they make, or the time that they, that they missed their deadlines, on projects and held everybody else up. I mean, it gets very, very expensive. So ignoring it all of these years because it has that, hands off, kind of idea. They just simply haven't addressed it as something that they needed to help their employee with. My goal and my mission is to say, half your employees have already been through it. I mean, it's just the way it is. And 5% of them are going through it and contemplating it at the beginning of it, middle of it, or at the end of it. And then there's your team that we're working with one right now where the 8 years after their divorce, suddenly the payor of spousal support and child support came back and said, I want to modify this. Mm-hmm. And 8 years later, so she's still dealing with, him not wanting to pay spousal and child support 8 years later. So what does that do for her at work? Messes her up. She's still on the path. She's actually way better than she was and functioning way better than she was. But we are helping her 8 years after her divorce to deal with her, custody and financial matters.
Yeah, so I guess I see the difference there between someone passing away and the divorce, where this is not a simple thing. It's complex, and it also can be reoccurring. Parts of it can be as things change. And you mentioned a loss in productivity. Is that the biggest effect that it has to the business usually is productivity?
Yeah, well, it does, because that's where the money is, right? Because you and I have, your productivity at our company, ABC, theater is, we have a level of productivity that we need to provide. And I think we can both agree that your productivity may be different than mine, but both of us have to make more for the company than we cost, right? Than our salaries, right?
Right, to justify us being there.
Yeah, so we actually have a cost calculator on our website with how much divorce is costing your company. And so there's 3 things you need to know: your number of employees, your average salary cost, because we use salary cost because everybody's productivity cost is different, but we know that their income has to be less than their productivity output. So you have to know their average salary cost, and you have to know what it costs to replace an employee. And the reason for that is that 5% of divorcing employees quit. Now, we can help with that. We have a lot of strategies and tips and techniques to get your employee to stay, because the reasons that they leave are very manageable. And when you have that, when you understand what's going on, you can bring in other things to help them get through it. And of course, we as divorce coaches can help them just stay. We reduce the temperature in their marriage and in their room and get their head back in the game so that they can show up to work and be a productive member of the team.
Okay. So a little bit about the program. First, let's start with maybe what do you think is an ideal company or a client that you're best suited for? Not an individual person, but you know what I mean? Like a company.
Right. Yes, absolutely. We work with employees from 2 to 100,000, and we charge per month per employee. And it typically turns out, but so if you're on that smaller employee side, you need to be with an HR consulting company that recognizes our product and have to be a part of their group. If you do, and if you're in a company that does work with an HR group, and this does sound like something that you'd like to have them find out more information for you, they can contact us. Have them contact us. We're happy to the HR consultants love us because we solve the biggest problem that they have.
Yeah. So you have the capabilities to work with small or large organizations. Okay. And we talked about the effect on the business, right? With the productivity stuff. What are some of people have assumptions about this, but what are some kind of effects that a person that's going through it on a personal level is going through, during the process, and what the divorce planner or the divorce counselor that you provide to them helps them walk through?
Right. Well, I think that this is something that gives people a visual, The War of the Roses. Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
Okay. That is so true, with the exception that it was a little campy. The truth is that we see that kind of stuff every day, every day. And people say, like, it's just the movies. No, it's maybe an exaggeration of the movies, But I can't tell you the number of narcissistic divorces where they'll burn the house down and they want their spouse in it. I mean, it's really bad. So that is what we deal with every day. And it doesn't have to be high conflict. It can be betrayal. I mean, people that have been betrayed, they show up at work and they're in, for lack of a better word, a zombie-like state. And I'll give you an example of somebody that we worked with over the past 6 weeks. Over on a weekend, he just found out that he was getting a divorce. And on that Monday, he was a mess. I'm talking about a big old mess, could not function, could not understand what was happening to him. Here we go. Well, let us work with him and get him back. And we heard back from the company just, I would say maybe a week ago, going, we have never seen a transformation like this ever. Bring it on. We understand now we get it. Because what we did, we were able to like give him some direction. We were able to give him a plan. We were there to help be a sounding board too, where they could just, everything that's pent up inside of them, instead of giving it to the other people around their cubicles. Because one thing your viewers and listeners may need to know is that divorce is contagious. It is, you don't want it around the water cooler. Right? You don't. Why? Because you're going to end up with, it goes to 2 degrees of, it's in Freakonomics, the book Freakonomics. They did a study on it, and it shows that it goes outside 2 degrees of separation there. Yeah. So, if you can keep it out of, because sometimes we just need somebody to go, this is what's happening to me. And around that water cooler, what ends up happening is, well, I got $100,000.
Yeah. Everyone has an opinion.
I want $100,000. Right.
Yeah.
And Susie got it. Right. And then it's, somebody comes back and it's like, I am dating up a storm and having the best time of my life. And I don't have the kids every other weekend and I'm able to go out. And for some people, that sounds like the life they want. So they go, I'm going to file for divorce. And that's literally how it starts. So, keeping your employees from talking to one another about their own divorce, give them to us. Let them talk about their divorce all they want to us, because that helps them heal. That helps them get it out so that they can go back to work, breathe, and function. Okay. And that's at the end of the day what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I can see the visual on that, because everyone's always got an opinion. They know someone or had a relative that had a bad experience or whatever. Okay, so that's good. I like how you explained that. So when a company partners with you, I'm curious if you could give us some insight on the steps that you go through in implementing your service into a company's offerings. You use the term thinking partner. So give me some more detail on that, if you don't mind.
So we are your employees' thinking partner when they are going through it. But the steps for us to work with a company we actually have 3 products. Okay. It's pretty easy. The first product is we train your staff. We have a program. It's a little over 5 hours, and we have SHRM credits if anybody has members of SHRM, Society for HR Managers, on their team, and HRCI credits. But we take them through an awareness and understanding program where they can see what are some of the stressors that their religious employees have that maybe they don't understand, right? If you're in the Jewish religion, there's something that a woman needs called a Jewish get, and that becomes a negotiation piece. And she may have to give up a lot to get that, which is, very similar in the Jewish religion to maybe say an annulment. And then there's something in the Muslim religion as well. And it's literally a negotiation fact. It is. It's amazing. And so we help them with that. But we help them understand that there are some additional things that are behind the scenes that they don't know. In LGBTQ marriages, they've only been able to be married now for 7 years. Well, what if they had been together for the last 25 or 30 years? They still have only been legally married for 7 years, and it's considered a short-term marriage in the courts. In most states, it's considered a short-term marriage. And so benefits are much different. So we deal with that. Families with special needs children, they divorce at extremely high rates, and they have different things that other, families without a special needs child has to manage and deal with, right? Additional stressors. And especially if they have to move their child out of their home. And let's just assume that, for a moment that they have a child that has all sorts of medical equipment and they've had to, widen doorways and hallways and all of that thing. And suddenly they can't afford to live there anymore. Think about what that does to that family, that employee as they show up to work. It's a challenge. Well, we have experts that help them get through that. We also have experts that help them work with a family law attorney that may not understand Social Security and government benefits and that sort of stuff, Medicare, Medicaid. And because, they're family law attorneys. So we have experts that help them write in a settlement statement in such a way that their child doesn't lose their benefits, right? So we help that. And we help them manage, when you have a plan, when you have direction, even though it's something that you may not have wanted, but at least you know that you're going to go through it. And it's a system that I know a lot better than you know, and I'm going to help you to the other side, have a better experience, a better landing, a better result for yourself so that you can go back home and you can live a life. You can show up at work and you can be a valuable team member. I think that's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, well, and it goes along the lines of being able to make an informed decision. So then you have a little bit more confidence. I considered everything. I didn't get taken advantage of. I had someone who advocated for me. And, it was not a pleasant experience, but we got to the end of it and we're going to try to move on. And I had someone who was my advocate on my side and I got the best outcome that I think that I could. Because that's always what people wonder about is the what if, when they go it alone is, could I have done that? Or could I have done that? Or was that legal? Or should I have done that? Or should I have said something or not said that? Or
that's another part of the thing that when I tell you that it's, it's ongoing, it doesn't have closure. That kind of stuff sits in your brain all the time. And and by the way, every time a check comes every month, it's just another reminder. It's just another mini trauma to a lot of people.
Yeah. A reminder.
We had one guy that, he got remarried and with intention, he bought checkbooks that were from the marriage of his new wife onto his checkbooks that he bought just to send her child support and spousal support. That's that kind of stuff that, right?
Reminder, right?
Constant reminder,
poking the jab.
The big middle finger to you, every month. And that gives, for whatever reason, that gives him great pleasure. And, and it hurts her every month.
Yeah. So we talked about productivity is the biggest benefit probably to a company implementing your program.
Oh, wait, if I could say, there's really a lot more benefit to the company than that.
Yeah. What other ones can they experience?
The second one is we help with retention. Because 5% of your divorcing employees quit, we help you. The first reason being they felt unsupported. Don't bring your divorce here. Leave that crap in, right? That makes people leave. Because you can't leave that stuff at home. It's your life. It's your cells of your being. Your marriage is a part of who you are. And your divorce is too. So creating a wonderful culture that is accepting of all diversity and adversity. And most importantly, giving your employees support during that time. So that's one thing. The second reason people leave is because they can't find affordable housing near the workplace. And now that people are having to go back to the office where you live, and in those instances where you have to actually show up at an office, where you live is very important to being able to get there. So we have our divorce coaches, and we use something called the CDLP, which are certified divorce lending professionals. We use those, but they'll helping the family law attorney write a settlement statement that can give, done correctly, can give their employee an additional approximately 20% more buying power. And I mean, how great is that, right? We can help them help keep their employee retained. And then the third reason that they leave is childcare. So sometimes they go home to mom, right? But if you don't have a facility where childcare on premises is possible, maybe there's a childcare facility in the area of your office or in the area of where she lives, where you can supplement or pay for, support that employee and their children so that they can stay employed. Because right now, employee retention is huge. So those are just three and we have so many more, but that just kind of gives your listeners, some things that maybe they need to think about implementing in their place of work to keep that. And retention right now is huge. We're working with a company right now that said, I cannot afford to lose one quality control person. One. Imagine it's because you were a jerk to your employee and said, leave your divorce at home. Yeah. And that was enough, right? And also this builds employee loyalty. If one of the things, there was a recent study that came out of what do employees want? And at the end of the day, the biggest thing that they walked away with is that they wanted to be treated as a human being and a valuable member of the team and not just, the widget maker, right? Yeah. They wanted to be treated humanly, and treating your employees humanly means you need to help them with all of the adversity that they go through too, as a supporting member of their lives, because they're humans, right? Yeah. Right. And so that's what we do. So we increase employee loyalty, we improve employee retention, and you'll just have a focused and happy team member that shows up to work and can function. Like the guy I was telling you about that, was just spinning out of control. And, within a few weeks, he was back to his old self and able to be a part of the company again. And how valuable is that for that company? It's just amazing. And I will tell you, I don't think he'll ever leave. It's like, wow, they really took care of me.
Yeah. Well, and I think retention is really important. I mean, it was before, but it's really important now because, it's so competitive as far as the job market, and people, are offering a lot of incentives to switch places. So anything you can do that's kind of unique or really important, or like you speak about, that's humane from a benefit standpoint, really people have to think about that if they're considering other options. Am I really going to get this type of programs in another place that I go just for a few $1,000 more? Because it's tough to put a price tag on that stuff.
It is. And you had asked earlier on, like, what are some of the objections or, the challenges that I have with companies? And I don't think they don't want to feel like they're advocating for divorce, because a lot of companies that's not what, and quite frankly, we don't advocate for divorce. Yeah. We don't. We just advocate for divorce done right. And I'll give you an example. I don't know how much time we have, but we have a case where, so the husband and wife, he owns a very, very famous restaurant. And many, many years ago, he had gone over to Thailand and he met a Thai woman there who was living with her family. He bought them a home. He ended up marrying his wife there. They came back and signed a post-nup agreement that was not only written, she knew she was going to sign it, but it was translated into Thai so that she understood what she was saying. And I'm going back 18 years now. And meanwhile, so then they go through life. They have 3 children. There's some mental health issues there, and they are going through a divorce. And, he had agreed that he wasn't going to, I'm not going to think about the prenup. We have 3 children together, blah, blah, blah. And she went off on a crazy, thought process that she had. And he said, okay, then, you're leaving me no choice, but I have to go back to the post-nup. And so she went to her attorney, who said, we're going to fight that post-nup. We're going to depose the attorney that wrote it. We're going to get it overturned. We're going to fight it. So now I'm going to tell you right now that the post-nup will change exactly this much. It won't change. the attorney, that the wife's attorney knows it won't change. The wife's attorney makes $600 an hour. Opposing counsel is $750 an hour. This is a high-end divorce. And the gentleman that wrote the post-nup agreement 15 years ago charges $3,500 a day for his time for 2 days. Now, the gentleman, the husband in this case, owns a very famous restaurant, but also restaurant money goes out the door in food going out the back door, money coming out of the cash register, you name it. It's a hands-on business, and he can't be there for 2 days. So this event that will change that post-nup agreement by this much is costing that family 30 grand for nothing, except the attorney's going to make that. Her attorney's going to make money. His attorney's going to make money, and the attorney wrote the post-nup agreement is going to make money. They get this much. Mm-hmm. Actually, they're down 30 grand, right? Because they knew how much money was available, liquid, and that could be spent. So that's the kind of stuff we keep them out of, right? Right. That was nonsensical, and I'll tell you that all of the attorneys knew that before they did it. They all knew it. Baby needs pair of shoes.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good example. Yeah, and a sad one, but true.
It happens every day, all day.
Yeah,
see it every day.
That's the system. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're close to the end. I want to ask you just a couple more questions. So what do you kind of see going forward as the biggest opportunity for your business?
Well, because we are in education marketing as opposed to competitive marketing, because there's nobody like us. There's nobody in the market doing what we do. But it's also education marketing because we have to let companies understand that all of this, ignoring it for all of these years, has cost them hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And I'll give you another example. We're working with a Fortune 100 company right now, and we put them through our cost calculator on our website. And they are losing about $250 million a year in lost productivity. $250 million a year.
Yeah, it's a big number.
It's a big number. And it's a number that can we take away all of it? No, because we can't control the other side. Mm-hmm. We have no, and it's particularly with that narcissistic personality disorder divorce. As hard as it is to be married to a narcissist, it's way harder to divorce a narcissist. So we prepare for battle. We gird our loins, we put on steel, we grab our sword, and we know we're in for a fight there. But at the end of the day, what we do is educate employers about how, it's simple for us because we know it, it's backwards and forwards. We have over 60 divorce coaches. Most of them are former family law attorneys, former mental health counselors, and financial advisors. But so it's to answer your question, it's really educating the public, meaning the C-suite and the E-suite of companies, to understand what this is costing their company and the problem of continuing to ignore it.
Okay. So the biggest opportunity is the education that you are able to do. Do you think that's also maybe the biggest challenge as well?
Absolutely. Because it's so put on the back burner of things we don't talk about at work, that it's been a problem because they don't talk about it at work. Mm-hmm. So instead of really talking about it at work, and that's not what we advocate anyway, we don't want you to break compliance and do things with your employees that you shouldn't do. But we want you to, as soon as you can start to recognize the signs, of which there's many, once you can recognize the signs, call us. We literally have a hotline where if you have somebody in your office that's having what my very Southern mother would call having a come apart in your office, that it's already cost your company thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars if you're at that E and C-suite level. And so we want to get in there early. The earlier, the better, because the earlier we can get that head from spinning out of that, we can get them back to being able to be a functioning member of your company. Mm-hmm. And isn't that, quite frankly, you don't want to wait for it to reach the point where they burn the house down.
Right. Yeah. We don't want to wait for the come apart.
We don't want to have to wait for the come apart.
Right. Okay. That's well said. I like that. And I picked up a new phrase now. I'm gonna use that with my kids. Okay, so Vicky, if people want to learn more about you, the company, or contact you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Well, I would love them to go in and find out what divorce is costing their company on our website. It's www.divorcerightinc.com. Make sure you throw that INC in there.
Okay.
.com. Go to our cost calculator. We will send you an email with what divorce is actually costing your company based upon those three things. Remember, you need the number of employees, average salary, and cost to replace.
Okay. And that's 3 steps, really 3 data points there, and get a simple feedback from that. Okay, awesome. Vicky, listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. It's been a pleasure, and I enjoyed interviewing you. And I want to thank everyone for listening and watching the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors, where we're hoping to raise the financial and retirement confidence of everyday people just a little bit to another level, one show at a time. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. Take care. Be well. Vicky, thank you.
Thank you. This is awesome. I enjoyed this.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Chris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.